And I'm pretty sure that everything that you're saying, there are some people that's bucking and going back. Okay, so let me tell you. So first of all, everything that you're saying for a lot of people is new information. Some people have never heard this information before. Some people have never saw this perspective, saw this or heard of this context, historical background, or what have you. So we do have some questions in the inbox, well in the on the live feed. Uh,
Excellent.
so
Good. Good.
so my wife asked this question. Lamika, she said, would you argue though that it's? I think you may have answered it though, but is this still an important piece, an important practice today, tithing?
I'm sorry if you would repeat that question.
Would you argue that it's still an important practice today, tithing?
No, I think the important practice for believers is giving,
Okay.
not tithing.
Okay.
And I take that from several things. Number one, when we look at the New Testament, uh, in as it relates to the practices in the church, what we hear over and over and over and over are appeals to give, not one single appeal to tithe.
You talking
Here's
about in the
what's
New
funny
Testament, right?
in the New Testament
Right.
letters.
Right. Right.
Here's
Right. Right.
right. Here's what's funny. All of the people who the Christians who want to argue in support of tithing in the New Testament as mandatory or obligatory. In order for that to be true, then you have to also argue for mandatory obligatory Sabbath keeping.
Right.
And you also have to argue for mandatory obligatory circumcision.
Right.
And you have to argue for mandatory obligatory kosher dietary laws or kushrot. That's what you have to argue for because what you are arguing for is a command and a practice that was given to Israel under the law. Jesus, however, ended the sacrifices by becoming the ultimate end of all that the sacrifices were representing at the cross. And he's not just the sacrifice, that is what's being offered up. He's also the one doing the offering. And he claimed, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I'll build it back up. And so the reality is that Jesus fulfills the three things that necessitated the tithe in the first place: a functioning priesthood, sacrificial system, and a standing temple or tabernacle. Jesus obliterated all of that in his own life and in his death at the cross. Secondly, when the temple was destroyed in 70 AD, even the priesthood went away. So the real question is, who you giving your tithes to? Because there's not one single text in all the Bible that says give it to a prophet, give it to a pastor, give it to a teacher. The Torah is specific about giving it to the priest. I got another one for folk. I
Mm-hmm.
got another one for folk. Jewish synagogues and temples till this day don't even practice tithing because even in their understanding of the Torah, they understand that it had to be given to to the priest. And so a Jewish rabbi will never collect the tithing because they believe that to collect the tithing would be to teach the Torah wrong, and that would be considered a sin. And so what Jews do is they collect essentially a membership due, but not
Ah.
tithing. They don't even believe in tithing. And these were the people that the tithing command was given to. So pastors are wrong for teaching that tithing is a mandatory practice. What you find in the New Testament are appeals to give, and giving does not have a meter or a measure on it. Second Corinthians 9 and 7, it literally says that you are to give as you have decided in your heart. If notice, he says, as you have decided in your heart, you are to give. And then there's an appeal there to give generously.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as somebody says 15% or 10% or 13% or 5%, they are automatically measuring and metering out how much I am supposed to give. When Paul said that you are to determine in your own heart how
How
much to
much?
give. So nobody, in fact, if anybody teaches mandatory tithing, they're actually teaching against what Paul instructed in that verse. What Paul instructed in that verse is that you determine how much and what that percentage looks like. In fact, percentages are relative to actual dollar amounts, right? And since
Mm-hmm.
Paul said you determine that, if you determine the dollar amount, then you're determining the percentage. Nobody else can do that for you. And Paul said, out of your own heart, not out of some prescribed amount or percentage. It's out of your own heart. So you can't argue around that. You cannot argue around that. And in fact, that verse stands in the context of an appeal that Paul is making to the Corinthians to give,
Mm-hmm.
because as a result of ministry and relief for other suffering believers. So there's absolutely no text in the New Testament that mandates anything other than giving. Giving is what we ought to be teaching believers, not tithing.
This is Carroll, host of Turn Up the Volume podcast. Listen, do me a favor. If you like this video, do yourself a favor and hit the subscribe button. Also, tap the bell and turn on all of your notifications to see this and more interviews and more shows from my podcast right here on my YouTube page. So y'all hit that like button, tag, share, and subscribe. Y'all be good.